I hear thunder.
I'm hearing thunder, yeah, too. This is going to be we have a dramatic setting today, full of both hum and thunder.
Well, God willing, we don't fuck it up as bad as the space shuttle program.
Oh God. Well, I get here we are, in the middle of the storm of the century. Here to record a podcast, our first podcast about space.
It is not our first podcast about space. We've done the Nadalan disaster. That was about space.
That's barely
that
space.
was tangentially about space.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What kind of rocket blew up? Was it a land rocket?
Did
was
it make it to space?
Where was it supposed to go?
Space. But that's a land disaster.
It doesn't go to space. It never achieves orbit.
Listen, if you try and kill someone, they charge you with attempted murder, right? So if that's an attempted space flight, that still counts. That's a space disaster.
No, absolutely not.
This is the first podcast where we talk about something that stays in space for an extended period of time with some thunder for dramatic effect.
And that's some humming that we don't know what it is.
Some humming.
I think the humming might be related to the storm.
Possibly.
Yeah, so let me just get out ahead of all the commenters and shut up.
Well, at least I'm back and we won't have any Discord beeps this time.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we got some feedback.
Welcome to Well, There's Your Problem. It's a podcast about engineering disasters with slides. I'm Justin Rosniak. I'm the person who's talking right now. My pronouns are he and him. Okay, go.
I am Alice Caldwell County. I'm the person who's talking now. My pronouns, she and her.
Yay, Liam. Hi.
Hey, Liam.
I'm Liam Anderson. My pronouns are he, him. And today we have a guest.
We have a guest.
Woohoo! Yes, my name is Clark Newman. He, him.
Why are you here, Clark? What the fuck do you now?
Justify yourself.
Y'all asked me to be here.
What special qualifications? I'm not doing the cat and mouse. What qualifications do you have to be on this podcast?
Well, okay. To be fair, my job title is Advanced Mission Design Engineer. I work on site at Johnson Space Center doing spacey stuff with a contracting company, and so I know about space. I know not too much about the shuttle, other than I worked a couple shuttle missions very early in my career before it went bye-bye, but remotely kind of from Goddard Space Center, so
good enough.
It almost doesn't count in a way.
It does too. It's like, yeah. What is it about space people? What is it about space people that makes them humble like this? Like, you talk to any astronaut, right? And you'll be like, hey, was it cool when you saw the Earth from space? And they will always affect this, like, fucking folksy Ohioan simple country dirt farmer bullshit. Where it's like, well, yeah, I guess it was kind of cool when I saw the Earth from space. When I saw the Earth from space?
Yes, when I achieved a miracle, man has jumped up and down.
When I helped put shit in orbit around a moving astronomical body, that was I wouldn't really count that as subject matter expertise.
Not even top 10.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just a simple country astronaut.
I actually looked at printouts from a dot matrix printer of these things called inter-range ranging vectors. I don't really want to get too deep into it because it would be extremely boring, but it was very lost. Every 108 minutes you gotta push the button, so nothing is automated. with respect to that program, and lots of fingers were in it. Lots of jobs were impacted by it. Yeah, let's get into it.
So today we're going to talk about a railroad company. That's right. Which you can see over here. But they also do something else, which is launch the space shuttle.
Yeah, our favorite Class 3 railroad, NASA.
Oh yes, it's side gig, of course.
Listening.
Well, this is actually the crawler that we're looking at right now, isn't it? Or wait, which one are we looking at? Yeah, the crawler guy. Oh, but you've also got the railer highlighted. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, no, this is like, in this economy, everybody's got to have 2 jobs. So, railroads, spaceflight.
Ride never sleeps, baby.
had to grind for this view, and it's just the Earth from space.
Yeah, today we're going to talk about the space shuttle program.
Whole thing.
The whole damn thing.
Start and finish.
Yep.
Obviously, at some point, we'll probably go more into detail about certain parts of it in future episodes. This is a whole broad overview of the space shuttle program.
Shuttle 101.
Yes. But first, we have to do the goddamn news.
Boo this man.
I nearly sampled and used the audio of you guys trying to do the news noise yourselves for this.
You should have.
I should have.
Cute.
Funny.
I should have, but instead I was too mad at Richard Branson for not dying in space.
That's very understandable.
Did he really go to space?
No.
If you would ask me, I've taken a firm controversial stance on no.
He went to how high up did Richard Branson, telecoms entrepreneur, private island owner, and general guy, go into space, like 50 kilometers up, right?
Failed operator of the West Coast main line.
Yes, that's also true. Yeah, he has failed at going into space and he's failed to operate British trains by going to like sort of 50 kilometers above the Earth's surface, and like the lowest sort of like more controversial definition of the boundary of space is 80 kilometers, and then the like sort of more accepted one is 100 kilometers, just to nice round numbers. But he didn't do either of those. He got on a sort of a private spacecraft owned and operated by himself, and did a suborbital flight. So
Not as high as a weather balloon.
Yep. And after a mere, 60 years, we've come back to Mercury Redstone and doing suborbital flights just to say that we could. Which is great. I love this. This is cool. He's gonna probably try and sell tickets on these.
I mean, didn't Lance Bass of NSYNC go to space, or was his mission canceled?
There've been a bunch of weird space tourists. Yeah, I know this. This is just a thing when you get too much money. Like Jeff Bezos said that the only thing he could think to do with the money that he has is spend it on space flight, which is possibly the worst thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
So it's very confusing to me because these two guys, Bezos and Richard Branson, are both competing. They were competing to be the first billionaire in space. Elon Musk could do it tomorrow if he wanted to.
Lance Bass was rejected.
Yes.
He was going to go to
Star City and do it, and then his financial sponsors backed out.
Yeah, he couldn't raise the $20 million, and so Roscosmos, the Russian space agency, was like, no ticket. Which is cool. went through all the training, and he was like, nah, niet.
What if the ticket was revoked after they lifted off? They'd have to take him to the back of the spaceship and throw him
Just
off.
kick him off.
That's
Polar Express.
Yeah, you just. I guess the alternative is you're just in the Soyuz and you see a little sticker up there that's penalty fare if for no ticket, and you're just like sweating, just doing like, oh, fuck, they're gonna fucking ticket inspector's gonna come to us.
They're gonna put me on at the space station.
You live here now.
They're just washing dishes at the space station, trying to earn passage back.
Well, that's space news. What about
That's space news.
the opposite of space, which is trains?
Yeah. All right, I'm logging off for the next hour and a half. Justin, it's all yours.
Yeah, Ross, go.
Amtrak's buying new trains and they're fucking stupid.
Why are they stupid, Ross?
All right, so what they're doing is they decided we have this whole nice electric fleet of locomotives, right? And they're going to replace them with dual mode electro diesel locomotives, right? So what they're doing, the logic here is, well, now we can run through trains from electric territory into non-electric territory seamlessly. But what they're actually just doing is they decided, well, we're America's only passenger railroad. We're going to commit to fossil fuels until at least 2050. This is the dumbest fucking thing I've seen in my entire life. They're also spending altogether too much money on it. I can't believe they're getting away with doing this. But it's crap. It's very bad.
Get their asses.
Yes. It's just bizarre. You go from electric locomotives to sort of electric locomotives.
Yeah, step backwards. But we got an Amtrak guy in the White House for all that about us.
I was about to say, yeah.
We've got Pete Buttigieg as Secretary of Transportation. That's progressive.
Right, exactly. We have a gay CIA train guy making sure.
There is a gay CIA bike guy first.
You
and
take what you
foremost.
can get, I guess.
He's a bike guy as well, yeah. Yeah, so this is incredible. I could talk for an hour and 30 minutes on this, but I would save that for a future episode.
People have been complaining that the episodes are too short, so frankly, go off, you know?
I don't want to do it on the news. The goddamn news. Plus 10 seconds about the shuttle. All right. So we need to ask a question here. What is space?
It's really big.
Yes.
It's
Not Earth.
Check it out.
Yeah.
So yeah, you guys got it from there.
Space isn't. It's a thing where there isn't a thing. Possibly there are some things we can't detect those things, or those
Yes.
things are like the inverse of things that we can detect.
Yes.
It's got a lot of weird shit in it.
Yes. It has trees shaped like X's.
Like like fucking the planets made of diamonds, like underground lakes of like hydrogen,
Mercury or whatever. Sure.
Yeah.
Just go to I fucking love science and they'll tell you where it's at.
Yeah. No, my understanding is space is up. That's where it is.
Much like Cardi B.
I suppose if you go down far enough, you would also reach
Oh,
space.
that's the Hollow Earth.
So why would you go to space?
Astronaut mining, or asteroid mining.
Astronaut mining.
Astronaut mining.
Suck it, Norris, Dad.
Mine the shit out of this astronaut.
He knows what he did.
Yes.
Embarrass communists.
That seems to be the main reason, honestly.
Embarrass capitalists, conversely.
Another reason to do it.
Because there's stuff up there that you want to like look at, but you can't like photograph it very easily. So you just like run a thing into it or shoot a probe at it. That takes
Use a legal loophole to go over it without being in tear space.
Yeah, exactly.
Hell yeah.
If you want to point that telescope inwards, you can do all kinds of shit. You can see what the Soviets are up to. Yeah. You can read newspapers over people's shoulders, allegedly.
Am I not allowed to sue for a satellite encroaching on my airspace? I thought property rights went all the way to the heavens and straight to hell. This was my understanding.
Well, we're getting into a sort of a theological discussion
Well,
about where
heavens
the
is
heavens.
firmly outside of space, I believe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. It's like, but also space isn't airspace. It's space.
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 Some call it the final frontier.
That's true. Some
No,
do
that's
call it
Alaska. But okay.
that. Yeah,
God,
space is a difficult place, almost as inhospitable as Alaska. Only
No
yeah,
polar bears in
fewer bears.
space.
few of
Yeah.
things Alaska has in common with space. The government might pay you to live there. It's relentlessly hostile to human life.
Yes.
Hey, me too.
Space, also commonly called Seward's Folly.
It's got like a bunch of secret military shit in it that nobody really knows what it's for.
Alright. Alright, but in space.
Over the
You can
horizon.
put, yeah, you can
radar.
put ballistic missiles through it.
It's cold.
Yes.
I mean, really, the similarities rarely, they go pretty far.
There's lots of water, but it's ice.
Nice, baby.
Yes. So yeah, there's lots of reasons you would go to space or go to Alaska.
Let's not go that far.
Yes. So, well, I've been to Alaska. I haven't been to space. Maybe I should go to space.
Yeah. Richard,
Hard
if you're
guy.
listening, if you have a spare seat on the Virgin Galactic, and also you don't mind like me yelling at Roz and calling him a class traitor the whole time, consider taking.
Sign us up.
Yeah.
Right, so you're gonna sit in the seat next to me and yell at me the whole time.
Yeah.
That's
Being
my
on the
job.
spaceship.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's
We
what
can take it in space. We can take it in turns.
Yeah, that's what the World Airship Open tour experience is.
It is getting yelled at a lot. Yeah, no, I can confirm.
One thing I would like to note when you go to space, make sure the rocket is in orbit.
Yes, Looney Tunes taught us.
Yeah, you
Yes.
don't want to nudge the rocket into
Yes.
reverse.
Yeah, not good. You go underground.
You can do science in space. You can like throw some like dogs or rats or like mold out there, and then you can look at them and see what they do. And sometimes that's interesting. You can see what it does to a person.
You can see what it does. You could just send a dog up there and then it dies, and you're like, this is a great success.
I feel like I'm gonna get played past that. Like, most of the dogs that the Soviet Union put in space lived.
The first one they did.
No, they did. Okay, they did fully like murder Laika, but like otherwise, like if we're talking about like Belka and Strelka and stuff, no, those dogs survived because that was part of the reason for putting them up there was to test whether you could like return a like living like a mammal to Earth alive from space. So
Didn't you say that the United States sent a bunch of monkeys up there to die?
We
pretty
sent
sure.
chimps. We've brought some chimps back, but I always wonder why chimps versus dogs. What was the driving behind those animal choices?
sentimentally attached to chimps, maybe. Who's to say?
We need higher order life to murder.
It's just somebody in NASA was like, yeah, we gotta make sure that like none of these other higher primates get any ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just an astronaut holding a knife to a chimp's throat. Don't get any fucking funny ideas.
In the right stuff, they says they actually would shock their feet to get them to push the buttons that they wanted.
Jesus.
That's rude.
That's
That's
pretty rude.
rude.
Yeah.
Man, okay, well.
It's not
Alright,
quite a
well,
knife to the
alright,
throat.
Bummer.
All right. Whoever wrote the notes for this one, what are we looking at?
We are looking at a Saturn V rocket, which I have chosen to make the point about what we did before the space shuttle. And what we did before the space shuttle was big rocket go to space. This is very simple and very intuitive. I say very simple, it isn't, but like it's
That's
intuitive
Just so everyone's aware.
because it's a big tube of explosives, right? Like that's it. It's not simple, but it is straightforward in that sense, if you follow me. There are, however, some limiting factors to putting stuff in space on top of a big rocket. First of all, you have the Tsiolkovsky rocket equation, or sometimes called the tyranny of the rocket equation, which is that you have to carry all of the fuel that you need, and then you have to carry all the fuel that you need to carry that fuel, and then you need all the fuel that you need to carry the fuel that you need to carry the fuel to carry the fuel. And then you need to carry the fuel, which carries the fuel. You need to carry the fuel. That
My
carries
head
the
hurts.
So there's like that's a limiting factor. Another limiting factor is that like you can sort of like you have to build a new rocket if you want to put something else in space. Like you can kind of maybe recover and refurbish some bits of it, but like jettison and pull back to Earth, but like not reliably. So that's sort of a problem. But we have a solution to this because we have planes. We already have planes. Plus, most of the guys who are like doing this rocketry stuff are all Air Force guys anyway. So they're all thinking in the back of their heads, like, okay, can we apply the principles of aircraft to put thing in space? Next slide, please. Talk about the Boeing X-20 Dinosaur. I love this thing. Dinosaur here is DYNA-SOAR.
Nice. Yes.
Oh my God.
Back when the future was cool.
1966 they planned this first. And the idea is that like this sort of like this plane thing, it bolts on, it's the top stage of a rocket. You launch it like a rocket. And then it separates those stages, and then once you're done doing whatever you need to do in space, this vehicle re-enters the atmosphere separately, and glides to a runway, which you have a certain amount of control from, like having like like a lifting wing and like control surfaces.
Let me get this straight. So this bit has all the expensive stuff in it.
Yes.
And you bolt it on top of the big fuel tank bullshit that has the cheap stuff in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then you don't have to remanufacture the expensive shit.
Exactly. There are a bunch of like technical, let's say, challenges. Let's be generous and say challenges here.
Sure.
Okay.
Like if you do some very, 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 very complicated maths wrong, then you skip this thing off the atmosphere like a stone in a pond, and everybody dies in space. Or if you do it wrong in the other way, you just plunge this into the atmosphere, it melts, and everybody dies in the atmosphere. And then if you do some more maths wrong, then you like get it through re-entry and it lands on a runway, a tire explodes, and everybody dies on ground.
It all comes back to tires.
Yeah, pretty much.
Make them more rigid.
Pretty much. Now, there are a bunch of these projects. Most of them got cancelled pretty quickly. The Dinosaur only lasted like 2 years. And my gut feeling is, and I'm begging to be corrected on this one, that it's less that those problems were like technically insurmountable even in 1966, and more that like there wasn't really that much of a reason to do this. Because the stuff that you were trying to do in space in the 60s was, go to the moon, land on the moon, return a man safely to Earth from the moon. It requires different tools, and you don't really you're not doing a lot of like repetitive stuff, which is what you would ideally hope to use a space plane for. Next slide, please.
Now, there's one thing I'm confused about.
Oh, please.
Which is skipping off the atmosphere, right? I
Yeah.
don't know much about space. I have played Kerbal Space Program, though. And it's my understanding that when you hit the atmosphere, you slow down,
Yeah.
which then makes you sort of, deorbit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Typically, yeah, but you can with enough. If you generate a little through an oopsie daisy, generate too much lift as you're barreling into the atmosphere, you could go back up. Or if you come in with too much energy and you don't bleed it off in time, you will go back into space.
One fun thing about the Dinosaur is that they actually intended on paper for it to be able to do this on purpose. They genuinely intended to be able to track different satellites and satellites changing course in orbit. They intended to be able to bounce it off the atmosphere purposefully. And I will say that one of the reasons why this didn't get off the paper stage is that the G-forces that were supposed to happen to the crew at this point were substantial, and I'm doing air quotes.
It's got a bit of a kick when you bounce off the atmosphere.
Listen, you know it's bad when a bunch of like right stuff guys who like smoke unfiltered cigarettes all day every day
Nice.
are like, no, this is too dangerous.
Yeah, you're gonna go from Mach 32 to Mach 75 by way of Mach 2.5.
Only the X-20
You guys remember the
dinosaur.
Bob comment? This is gonna be a lot fucking worse.
Only the X-20 dinosaur reduces an entire Marine Lieutenant Colonel to a soup-like homogenous. Give me the next slide, because this one I love. This is a landing test vehicle that the Soviets made called the MiG-105, and I include it only because it's adorable. This was their attempt to do the same thing, but they only used it for like test landings. But I love it. It looks like a gym shoe. It's delightful.
It looks like a little
That is
boat.
delightful. What
This
is
is
this
tiny
thing
little-
sticking out the side? Is that a sled?
Yeah, because this was their solution to to the tire
problem?
Yeah, and the same for the dinosaur. In fact, was that every tire that they could build at that time would just be destroyed whenever it landed at the minimum speed it could have done. So their solution was we put it on like little skis, and we make those out of the same thing as the hull, and this is gonna be fine. It's gonna be
Could
fine.
you-
Don't worry about it.
All right, my dinner's here. I gotta go on mute.
Oh boy. Was it landing on like snow, or was it landing on just
a
an ordinary
paved
run?
runway. And a really long one too. It's
Oh man, did it just? This has just been a show of sparks.
oh yeah, 100%.
How
Which
did you steer?
I don't know how much that was a concern.
What if you have to do a crosswind landing?
Oh my god. There is also another alternative to like making a spacecraft that's more like a plane, and that's you attach the spacecraft to a plane that flies like very high and very fast, and you launch it from the plane and then try and go to space. Nobody really does this. The Air Force, the US Air Force tried it with like sort of an unmanned like missile thing. But like apparently the benefits of doing that are like pretty marginal. And it's also like insanely complicated even for like space standards.
Yeah,
Like,
it's,
if it
it's
goes-
done for small scale. It's done. There's a Pegasus. There used to be a Pegasus. There's where the Richard Branson flight was done with a big airplane dropping a rocket. But yeah, you wouldn't want to be unless you're pretty limited in the size. That monster airplane that drops the Virgin rocket. That's the thing it drops is the Virgin. That's pretty much as good as you can get with regards to putting people in space that way.
Yeah. Also, it's like a ton more dangerous because if something goes wrong, you also manage to lose a plane into the bargain, which is fun.
I always like the school of thought that says you elevate the launch pad, 10,000 feet or so.
Yeah,
by way of a large tower.
It's like the first step of a space elevator.
Yeah.
I'm still. I have not done the math. I need to work on this, but slingshots from the ground. If they need to attach giant winches to start the first 10 seconds of liftoff, I think you could save a lot of fuel that way. I have nothing to back this up, but I think it's possible.
You just see the crawler just hauling in a bunch of trebuchets.
Now, I
It's
thought
like-
maybe
Exactly.
you could have some kind of large gun to shoot things into space. And I intend to find some kind of tin pot dictator to fund my idea. And this will not go wrong in any way.
No, you certainly will not be killed by Mossad. And another fun option, what if we detonated a nuclear weapon under the spacecraft that we wanted to send to space?
You're
Several,
supposed to
in
do
fact.
that in space.
Yeah, you'd think, but it has been seriously mooted that no, we just do it on land and stay far enough away from it. Oh, good lord. Well, next slide, please, because In case you're unfamiliar, viewers who are joining us late may not be aware. The United States did in fact send people to the moon. They went to the moon. They played golf on the moon. There wasn't a lot going on the moon. Is the thing. It's kind of like after a while, the American public kind of soured on the moon. Kind of bored of the moon.
Yeah, not much up there. Kind of
No.
boring.
The next thing was to go to Mars, but instead of doing that, one of the things that sort of like became more popular largely because it was, cheaper, was to like build space stations, like permanent like encampments in low Earth orbit, where you could do science, like Skylab, where you could operate a spy camera yourself instead of using it as a satellite. That was a plan. That was a plan that both the US and the Soviets did, was to have a manned spy station. The Soviets also armed theirs. They tried putting an aircraft cannon on theirs.
Did it work?
I don't actually know if they ever fired it or not in space. Is the thing.
I believe they did. I remember hearing about this, and I believe they did some parting shots with it just out there. And nothing in particular.
Yeah, we just when humanity is obliterated, it's gonna be because the Soviet Union accidentally shot an alien over like several light years.
Some guy permanently manning the anti-air gun, just hoping to see an asteroid or something.
So I mean, I don't mean to be too down on space stations, right? Because you can do a lot of like useful stuff. And the idea is not like a bad one, especially if you're planning to like use them to like as like a sort of a way station to do longer space flight. But the problem is that like they need a lot of stuff. They need a lot of logistics. Not only do they need like an entire room full of people working 24/7 to make sure that they don't die, but they also need like regular supplies of stuff, food, water, and conversely, taking trash back home, taking people who want to get off Mr. Earth's wild ride back home. If there's an emergency, you need to like be able to evacuate people. So you need a spacecraft that can do a lot of like broadly pre-planned, very similar sort of profiled space flights on a regular basis with like very little deviation, so that people don't starve to death in space. But as we have seen from the Saturn V, spacecraft are expensive, and you got to drive those costs down because governments don't like spending money. There's two sort of ways of solving this problem, right? There's the Soviet way, which is you make a spacecraft that's very simple, very reliable, and very cheap. You sort of simplify and add weight, but without the adding weight part. Or you try and make a reusable spacecraft. Next slide, please.
I have two fun facts before we go. Since we talked about, okay, this is Skylab, right? The interior was designed by Raymond Loewy, same guy who did a bunch of streamlined trains, including the GG1.
Huh.
Another fun fact.
Skylab's weird. This is a weird 1970s moment in NASA history where they like sort of went on strike for a bit.
Yes.
Like all wearing orange coveralls. It was very like
Skylab strike, yeah.
I think that's when the worm started.
Hey, the Skylab astronauts still deny that they were on strike, which to my mind makes them cowards.
It's true.
Is it cowardice, or are they just not snitching?
Well, none of them ever flew in space again because NASA is a very vindictive agency, like all of the federal government.
They defected to the cosmonauts.
God, you just know that when they did the first Apollo Soyuz docking, there was serious plans on both sides for what if one of these guys wants to defect to us, right?
Oh, that'd be a good movie. I'd watch that.
Yeah. So we've got the manned side. There's also the unmanned side. to my next slide.
I have
which is-
another fun fact.
Oh, hit me with a
Do you
fun
know
fact.
there is a bishop of the moon?
Is this one of those things you can pay $100 and like get yourself ordained Bishop of the Moon?
No, it's a real bishop of the moon. Because the first manned mission to the moon departed from the Diocese of Orlando. The Diocese of Orlando has jurisdiction over the whole moon.
Excuse me.
That's how it works.
That's quite the promotion.
Well, I mean, there are very few people on the moon.
In the
So they
last,
haven't seen-
10 years, the moon has settled with more than $5 million worth of abuse lawsuits.
That was good.
Yes, but there's very few people on the moon, so they haven't
Been
found
controversy
reason.
free for years, maybe.
Yeah, haven't
months.
found a reason to split the diocese yet.
There's a confessional up there covered in the gold foil from the Descent module.
Oh, that's another fun fact from the Skylab is when there was an issue and they just had with a plate, some exposure causing a thermal issue, and they just unfurled some gold foil, and you can see it in some of the photos of it where they literally just unfurled some foil in space just to cover it up, as one would a broken window to their car.
Put a tarp on it.
Put a tarp on it. Yeah.
Exactly. They put it is a space tarp. Yes.
As far as religion in space, I will also point out that that Buzz Aldrin took communion on the moon. But he was not a Catholic. He was, I think, a Presbyterian. So that doesn't. So like the first celebrant of like a religious sacrament on the moon was not a Catholic.
I was about to say that would be. Yeah, I think you would actually need to send a priest up.
Wait, I mean that's Protestants for you. It's like the brotherhood of all believers kind of thing. It's like it's just like just do it yourself.
We're bringing up a person to celebrate the mass up there, just so we can bring some booze up.
I mean, you have seen that like occasionally Roscosmos will have Orthodox priests bless spacecraft by anointing them with holy water from a brush, which is cool.
Nice.
That's wonderful.
The cosmonauts also used to be able to bring vodka up on Mir. They can't do it on the International Space Station.
It's a dry count.
That's
It
lame.
is a dry
They should be able to
space
just keep
station.
it on the Soviets. I mean, on the Russian side.
Yeah, on the Russian side.
Put a big tape down the middle, yeah.
Just put one of those little signs. No drinks past this line.
You are now leaving the American sector.
All right.
Alright, we're going to talk about satellites, and there are several uses for satellites. Most of them are boring. Like they can sometimes tell you what your position is on Earth. They can sometimes give you bad television, but more importantly, they allow you to spy on your nation's enemies.
Yes.
Is this actually Corona, or is this some other spy thing?
I'm not actually sure if it is. This is the thing.
It's all similar. These drop off the physical film canisters.
Yeah, the thing that I wanted to
These
highlight is that spy satellites used film until surprisingly recently, and the recovery of those is really fun because, as you said, they'll just shoot them back off, deorbit them, and they're intended to be recovered in flight too. You just have a C-130 hook the parachute and just reel them back in. So there wasn't any chance of.
There's some pictures of those, but I guess we don't have it, but that's okay. They would just a big hook out of the back of an airplane, just snag it right by its parachute lines.
Could you restock it with film?
No.
You don't have a big spaceship
film
from Kodak that shows up.
when you're out of rolls of film on